Okay, we're going to go over the parts of the machine and how to get started sewing. First of all, your on-off is slow and fast. We'll put it on slow to start with. And we have the hand wheel, and the hand wheel is used to move the machine. You always move it towards you. When the hand wheel moves, the take-up lever goes up and down, and so does the needle. And this is how you will go slow, or if you need to pivot or move the machine slower, you always use the hand wheel. Okay, every time you start and stop, this is the needle take-up lever. It should always be at the highest position. Every time you start and every time you finish. Alright, there's a couple things about the machine. These are called the feed dog. And when you use the hand wheel or you use the foot pedal, the feed dogs will move. And what the feed dogs do is they push the fabric through the machine. Now, I will demonstrate. When you have a piece of paper or fabric under the machine, the presser foot works with the feed dogs to push the fabric or the paper through. If you have the paper or your fabric under and your presser foot is up, the machine will just poke holes, usually in the same place, and won't go anywhere. If you want the machine to go, you have to put the presser foot down, and the feed dogs will actually push the paper or the fabric through the machine on its own. It'll actually stitch a pretty straight line on its own. The only thing you have to do is guide it as it goes through with your hands. Okay, so that's just a little bit of how the presser foot and the feed dogs work together to keep the fabric through. There are also lines on this, is called the throat plate, and there are lines on the machine that show you how much seam allowance you'll be using. Depends on what your pattern says, and for the kits that we use in school, we will sew on the number 3 line, which is actually 1/4 of an inch from the edge. When you're sewing, when I'm sewing, I keep my hands here and here, and I always use the finger guard should be down to protect your fingers. When I'm sewing, I keep my hands here and here so that I can guide the paper, and also I'm keeping my eye right on the edge of the fabric the whole time I sew. When you get to the edge and you want to pivot and you want to keep it at the same distance, you would go slower, and I kind of slow down and use my hand wheel, okay, and just move it slowly so I get to where I want. My needle is down. I'm going to raise the finger guard so you can see that. My needle's down, the presser foot's up, and I pivot. Now, at this point, you can move your fabric or paper anywhere, any way you want to, as long as the needle is down. That holds your place so you won't make a hole. So I'm going to pivot, put the presser foot back down, and I can start to sew on the number 3, which is 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And I would continue on in that manner. And that gives you a really nice edge. It's the same distance all the way around when you keep the edge of the fabric lined up with the line on the throat plate. Okay, we're going to go on to threading. And again, this is down, so I always want that at the highest position when we start. Okay, just a couple of the dials that we need to know about. This is the stitch control. And the stitch control should be on the number 7. If you were doing a basting stitch, you would move that down to a 6, and that's a longer stitch. But we will keep it on a 7 for what we're doing. Needle position should be triangle, triangle, and that's just a regular stitch. If you wanted to do a zigzag stitch, you could move this up 3, 4, and 5. Those are all zigzags. We're going to keep that on triangle, triangle. The thread tension has to do with the tightness of the stitch, and each machine should be set where it needs to be, but usually that's between 2 and 3. It should never be up and high like 6 and 7, and that controls how tight the stitches are. Okay, some of the other thread guides we need to look at. These are the thread guides we use for winding the bobbin. We only use these for winding a bobbin. Okay, they're not used to thread the machine, and that's the first thing I'm going to do. Is put thread onto a bobbin. And when you're sewing, you have 2 threads, an upper thread and a lower thread, or a bobbin thread. And these 2 stitches lock together in a lock stitch. And that's why you have to have the 2 threads, and it's important you thread the machine correctly so you have the right tension on the thread. Okay, we'll start by putting the thread right on the center, in the center hole. Okay, we go around this thread guide. Okay, and then with our thread, we want to start with the bobbin, and the thread should go from the inside to the outside of the bobbin, around this guide on the bobbin winding arm, and we lock that in place. Now we're ready to wind the bobbin. We don't want the needle to move while we do this, so I hold the hand wheel and I loosen the inside. Okay, now we're ready to go. I'm going to put the machine on fast so that it'll wind it quickly. Now you see I'm holding the thread up as I wind the bobbin. When we start to go a little faster, I'm going to take the thread and pull it, and it's going to break the thread, which is what you want to do. You do not want the thread to stay up at the top. Okay, and there's the thread I just broke off, and you do not want any thread to come out of the top of the bobbin. Okay, so you continue to wind until you have as much thread on your bobbin as you're going to need. When you're finished, you hold the hand wheel again and you tighten the inside back. Okay, release the bobbin winding arm and snip your threads. Okay, now we're ready to thread the machine. When we thread the machine, we only want to use the front of the machine. Do not use these. Again, that's only for the bobbin. We're just going to use these parts right here. All right, this is the tension disc, and we want to make sure this is threaded properly. If it's not, it will mess up the tension on your whole sewing project. So we hold the thread between our fingers, between our thumbs, and we lay the thread right on top of the disc. And this thread on the right goes in front of the foot and behind the foot. And this thread we push down and back up. And there's actually a little piece that looks like a thumb there, and the thread goes through that. And it'll have a nice little spring action. I'll do that one more time. Hold the thread, lay it on top of the disc. You go in front of the foot, behind the foot. And this thread we go down and back up. Okay? And that's how you have, it should pull through nice and easily. Now, we go to thread the machine. You go up, down, down. Okay, if you remember that, you won't have any trouble threading it. It goes up, down, down. Always thread the machine right to left. You go this way. So we're going to go ahead and go around the thread guide right to left, through the take-up lever right to left. And as you do that, you see it just goes back and forth, and this keeps the thread from twisting. Okay, you do not want to go left to right, and I'll show you why. If you did that, the threads would cross, and that's going to give too much tension on the thread. So again, up, down, right to left. Now this thread guide, there's a little hook back here, and the thread will go around that little hook and into that hole. So I'll just move it around until it clicks right in. This thread guide will be wound right through here. We start on the left and it just kind of twists around. Okay, so it's already down to the needle now. I'm going to lower my presser foot, make sure my needle is at the highest position so I can thread the needle. Now, I don't want to hold the thread back real far and try to thread it. It will not go in. So you want to hold the thread down as close as you can between your fingers. And I just kind of moisten the end of it there. And you'll go front to back through the needle. Okay, raise the presser foot back up, and the thread should go under the presser feet to the back left of the machine. Okay, now we're ready for the bobbin. Once your bobbin has been wound, you hold your bobbin up and make sure the bobbin thread is going from the top down to the left. Okay, and you hold it, make sure it's going that way. Do not have it going that way, to the right. Hold it so it's in front of you, the bobbin threads to the top, going to the left. We're going to place the bobbin in the bobbin case, holding the thread. There are 2 thread guides. There's one here and there's one here. We're going to take the thread, go through the first thread guide to the second thread guide and over to the right. Okay. Now we have to get this thread to come up through that hole. So we hold this thread up with our left hand, use our hand wheel, and we're going to move the take-up lever all the way down and all the way back up. Use my hand wheel, and it's going to go all the way down, all the way back up. Okay, we pull the thread. There's a loop. We're going to take the loop and pull that out. So now both threads are coming out, and they should be back to the back left of the machine. After you get this far, you can close your thread plate up and you're ready to start sewing. I have a scrap of fabric here that we're going to demonstrate how to sew like you were sewing a pillow. Okay, this you want to mark where you want your opening. Always make the opening of your sample in the middle. You don't want to have an opening on the corner. That's harder to hand sew closed. And when you pin your project, you always want your pins so they're perpendicular to the edge, not parallel but perpendicular. So when you're pinning, do not pin like that, because as you sew it's hard to take the pins out. So we want the pins perpendicular with the pointed edge inside, so as you're sewing it'll be easy to pull the pins out. Now I always keep my pin cushion right beside my machine so I can take the pins out and put them there as I go, and I always keep my scissors here as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start sewing, and you want to start and stop where your opening is on your sample. So I'm going to put this under my machine. I'm going to sew this at 1/4 of an inch, which is on the number 3. I'm going to start with the part I want to sew in front, because as you know, the feed dogs are going to push the fabric through the machine that way. So that's the direction I'm going to start here first. So I put my fabric under the machine and I line it up on the number 3 where I want to start. Okay, and I put my presser foot down so I can engage the feed dog. And now I'm ready. We have to tie a knot when we start and when we stop, just like hand sewing. And to tie a knot, we use the back stitch button. When you hold the back stitch button down, the machine will go backwards. So we're actually going to go up 3 stitches, back 3 stitches, and then we're going to stitch. And when you go up and back, that actually makes a knot on the machine. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to put it on slow so you can see better. And I'm going to leave the finger guard up just so you can see the machine. When you're using it, the finger guard needs to be down. Okay, again, I keep my hands here just to guide, and my eye is always on the number 3. 1, 2, 3, back stitch 3, 1, 2, 3, and then continue to sew. The part that I just back stitched, that will be a knot. As I get close to the edge, I see I need to change directions. So I'm going to go slow. I'm going to stop and use my hand wheel and get just a little bit closer. Needle down, presser foot up, and again, this is called pivoting. And you're changing directions, but the needle should always be down when you do that. Lower the presser foot back. And when I continue to guide it right on the number 3, here comes a pin. Take that out. Okay, get close to the edge again. Needle down, presser foot up, and pivot. Okay, getting close to the edge again. The needle down, presser foot up. And I'm a little bit over, so actually I can use the back stitch button just to go back 1 stitch, and I can still pivot. See, I might use 1 more actually, so we can go back 1 more. And now pivot, and I'm right at the number 3. Okay, take my pin out as I go. Here's my last corner. Needle down, presser foot up, pivot. Now, as I get back to where we are opening, I'm going to get close, stop, back stitch, 1, 2, 3, forward, 1, 2, 3. When you're finished, you see the take up levers down. We need to take the hand wheel and make sure it's up. Raise the presser foot, pull the threads to the back left, and snip. Okay, now, I should have a perfect 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And I'm ready to turn this inside out and stuff it. So we're going to clip our corners in a diagonal manner so that we don't cut our stitching. And then we're going to turn this inside out. And poke out our corners nice. And see where we pivoted, we'll have a nice sharp corner, and that's what we want. Okay, and then you were ready to stuff this, and then you would tuck your ends in, and you would just hand stitch back and forth across this to close that up. You always want to use a thread color that is as close to the fabric as you can. So when you pull that, the stitches will not show. And that should help you get started sewing.